Philip Kisia and Third Way Alliance presidential running mate Emmanuel Nzai. Now, did IEBC print way too many ballot papers? Well, Third Way Alliance presidential candidate Dr. Ekuru Aukot wants the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission IEBC to come clean on the exact number of ballot papers printed by the Al Ghurair printing firm, saying the electoral body may have printed more than 1 million ballot papers. Now, Aukot is also concerned that Al Ghurair went ahead to print the presidential ballot papers even before the agents for the various presidential candidates arrived in Dubai. Is it a founded concern or just another political surge? Gentlemen, this is a conversation we'll get into in just a moment, but first let's listen in to what Ekuru Aukot had to say.
IEBC followed the regulations and added 1% of the ballot papers for contingency measures. By design, the printer booklets are to be rounded up to the next 50-page ballot booklet. As a consequence, IEBC has been left with a total of 1.2 million extra ballot papers spread across virtually all polling stations. 6.1% extra ballot should be a cause of worry, because that's exactly what they have in their custody right now, 6.1%, and we should be worried about why we have these extra ballot papers. Number two, IEBC must ensure that this particular batch of ballot papers does not mix with any other suspected fake ballot papers that can possibly be introduced in transit, especially during transport to the polling station. Ballot papers does not mix with any other. All
right, so that forms the basis of our conversation this morning. And of course, gentlemen, we're trying to analyze as to whether this is a founded concern. Let's begin with you, Emmanuel Nzai, being the running mate to Ekuru Aukot, just to expound a bit more on the concerns that he has.
Yeah, correct. See, on our side, we've been very, very consistent about this issue. We've known that IEBC has a monumental task in conducting a fair and credible election as the Kenyan people expect. We complied after the appeals court ruling, and we sent our agent to Dubai. What he found out was what has been in the newspapers. 95% of the ballot papers had been printed, and we protested that. So it was simply a question now, how do we go forward? From that conversation, what we agreed was at least that we verify whatever we could. The ballots were in the constituencies, 290 constituencies. They looked at 70 of them. They finished the whole printing, but the end result was that there was about 1.2 million more ballot papers printed because of simply the booklets which were in the in ballot papers of 50.
Right.
So at this point, I think what we have said is the shift comes in now to IEBC in Kenya of what we need to do, because the ballot papers are now coming. What are we going to do with these extra ballots? How do we still ensure that we can trust IEBC to conduct a fair and credible election?
Right. Let's perhaps explore Weda's legal mind for a moment. Constitutionally, Weda, what is the provision for the extra ballot papers to be printed?
I think the law does not specifically say you have to print this number of ballot papers. It is only common sense which requires that you do not print excess, too much, you go beyond markup. But let's start from this rumor that is being spread by Third Way.
It's not Alliance.
A rumor. Please, just allow me. This is now serious business.
Absolutely.
They walk in there, and their first complaint is that these things were printed before they arrived.
Right.
There was no requirement that Third Way Alliance or any other person should have been there before printing. This offer was made to them by IEBC at the beginning, but they chose to go to their judges in court. Now, even if there were excess ballot papers, which has not been verified, the question would be, are they coming into the country? Okay? But even if they were to come into the country, the way the elections are now arranged, there are just about 700 people per polling station. We are no longer having a kind of election where you can stuff ballot papers. You will not be able to stuff them because the dynamics have changed. So if they saw extra ballot papers, is their responsibility and our responsibility to ask IEBC, do you have excess? And what do you intend to do with them? Because in printing, there are certain papers that are brought up If some have mistakes, if some are bad, and this is times of a sense, then they come up. It is when they come into the country and they excess that you'll be saying, what are you going to do with 1 million excess? And how are you going to distribute them? If they say it is for across the country, then it means that they have use, if they exist. But whether or not they exist is still a big question. Let us sort out that first before we become alarmists.
All right, let me give Uzai a moment to respond to that.
Michelle, it's a fact, and IBC has confirmed that there is 50 ballot papers in each booklet. It's 1.2 million more extra ballots. That's 6.5% more. It is not rumors, and I think, this, we need to talk about the facts as they are, not simply have a lot of words which convolute this situation.
So if IBC has confirmed the number of ballot papers, did you then ask what they're planning to do with these papers?
That's exactly what we did in our press statement yesterday, because what we can do is our agents went in there to observe. They can only push so much. These ballot papers have been printed. We went in to say, now, how are they going to be transported? Can they be serialized? Can they be marked? That was done. That's why we're saying, in terms of the way forward, very, very consistent, that we work with the IBC to help them make sure that there's a fair, credible election, is what do we do with this now? Those are the questions we're asking for IBC, and hopefully, sooner rather than later, they will come in and tell us what will happen now.
And with the answers. All right, Onyango Olo, do you think the concerns being fronted by Third Way Alliance hold any water? And did NASA, for example, have their agents witness the printing of these papers?
First and foremost, let us accept that the printing of excess ballot paper itself is a farce as a whole. And I think of all of us who are here, at least the Third Way Alliance can talk from a direct position that they did count the papers in terms of the booklets, and there were far in excess number of ballot papers. That is a grave cause of concern. My brother and colleague, Mr. Weda, said that as to whether they will arrive in this country or not is an issue, how they'll be used or where they'll be used is an issue. First, everything about those ballot papers excess is an issue. It is not the first time that we are having a democratic elections in this country, in the world, in Africa, or anywhere for that matter. And remember, nowhere except in dictatorships have we ever had 100% turnout. In dictatorships, you can even have 115% turnout. We are purporting to carry out a democratic elections. So doing 100% itself is cover enough for any, because remember, from the time we cleaned our voter register to the time of voting, there are people who have died, there are people who, for one reason or the other, will not turn out there. So one thing we want to say, everything about the way IEBC has conducted himself in this whole affair smacks of lack of credibility in the process of electioneering. And we have reason to worry. We have reason to worry that these ballot papers will find themselves into this country, and they'll find themselves into the ballot boxes and may be counted. What causes us to worry most is the manipulation of the legislature when they forced the manual voting as a way of also voting, and failed to bring regulations that will regulate how people will be allowed to use the manual system under what circumstances. So you cannot say that this thing is not an issue. It is a big issue. And they are easily likely to find themselves into the ballot papers and be counted for some certain candidates.
Right.
So the most important thing and the way forward, I think, is the position of NASA, is that these ballot papers must be brought in the country, all of them. And once be brought, they must be destroyed in the presence of the principal's agents.
The 1.2 million extra papers.
The extras. We don't need them. We are not going to give birth to 1.2 million voters overnight. Even if we were to give birth, they will not reach the age of voting. So
they should be destroyed. So that is NASA's position. Mr. Kisia, in the spirit of having free, fair, and credible elections, do you think maybe it was only right for IEBC to only print these papers after the agents of all the 8 candidates were in Dubai?
I think, as my brother Weda has rightly put it, where is it provided for in the law that agents or political parties will go on a trip, on a holiday trip to Dubai, courtesy of the taxpayers' money, to witness? They have no expertise. I think it is a waste of public funds. having some characters going there to monitor how the printing was going on. But having said that, I think the question is whether we have more or excess ballot papers. Yeah, there could be excess ballot papers, but again, for those who went, like Nzai went to Dubai on a holiday trip, when
that's an insult. On a light note,
So the question is, do you set a machine to print one ballot, paper, or one bunch in 40, another in 30, another in 50, another in 60? It's not possible. You set the machine to print a certain number. I think what my brother Oloa said is what needs to be done. What do we do with excess ballot papers? And from where we sit as Jubilee, we have absolutely no problem with whatever is called excess, if they so exist, being destroyed, so that we ensure we have a free and fair, credible elections in the Republic of Kenya.
All right, and of course we've had NASA's way forward. They say these papers should be, destroyed in front of Kenyans. But as Third Way Alliance, even as you wait for an IEBC to come and tell you what they're doing with these papers, what is your solution, proposal on the way forward?
We've given quite a few solutions, but before I go there, let me say this. You see, no matter what happens in all this, it's all about the Kenyan people and how they view IBC and the whole electioneering process, how they view the leadership of this country. And I think these are some of the things that we forget because we are simply seated on TV and we can say whatever we want and a bunch of insults. The fact of the matter is there was a court ruling which happened. We do not know when the printing started. Was it before the court ruling or after the court ruling? That's still up in the air. The fact of the matter is it was IBC who called in the agents as part of their public participation and for their own credibility as an agency. That was wisdom on their part. Now, this thing that people went in for holidays and all that, this is the kind of talk I think which is also insulting the Kenyan people. Now, right now, I think the onus is still on IBC, and we need to give them that. Okay. We gave them the recommendations that we had that at this point, what we need to focus on is probably the KIM system. Right. And again, assuring the Kenyan people that trust us. You have a reason to believe that this election will be credible and fair. I think that's one of the suggestions, there are a few suggestions, but before we even put it up there, we want to see what IBC has to come up with to do that. But I think beyond that, I think the agents of Jubilee who are here, there's still a sitting president out there. And some of the things that are being talked about are not helping the situation. Right. And that's the very sad thing. Like this conversation here, some of it is not very helpful in assuring the Kenyan people coming in from a ruling party. All right.
And of course, even as we wait on IBC to respond to these claims and concerns, there's been a mystery disappearance of one of the IBC ICT managers. And this is something that has raised eyebrows. Today is the 31st of July, when IBC is expected to be testing how election results will be transmitted during the election. Let me begin with you, Weda, as to your thoughts as to the mysterious disappearance of this ICT manager.
This morning, as I was going through the internet, I saw my brother Moses Kuria pointing at the vehicle of the so-called disappeared officer. And he was saying he's having fun in a nearby building. These disappearances in the last 1 year, we have seen candidates and people disappearing and reappearing and so on and so forth. Let the police investigate. I seriously doubt whether it is a serious disappearance related to elections or insecurity. Because I saw it, the photo was fairly authentic. You could see it. The VA says this is the vehicle. And that would be a position. But if on the other side it is true, I really don't think that one individual would be so vital that if he disappeared, nobody should disappear, but if he disappeared, he's not there, then ICT, there will be no testing, there will be no elections. No. There are other people who run an organization. I know that there are various backups.
Right. Onyango, is this something that should be taken seriously? Because if it is true, and you know, like Weda says, it's only one person, but doesn't that border to a security threat on IEBC and polling officers in general?
Let me tell you,
It could be that one.
my brother Weda has got a knack of making very serious events look very light. And if you are not careful, you'll soon be sucked into it. This is a very serious matter. Right. Remember, we are in a season of drama, a season when people appear and disappear. Some disappear forever. This is a season when certain things are orchestrated to achieve certain goals. The disappearance of the ICT chief of the IEBC is a very crucial matter at this moment in time. Remember, this is a man who holds the password to a very critical aspects of the ICT component of the electioneering process. Right. And this is a man who a few months ago had been suspended from his job, was brought back. We were never told why he was brought back. We were never told in the first place why was he suspended. Could he have been brought back so that he could play a game? Is it possible that he has refused to play ball and that someone wants to coerce him? There is even a very likelihood that whoever stands to gain by this man's disappearance could extract the information they intend to extract and then eliminate him. So it is not about us having the elections on 8th or not. It is about the critical docket that this man held in the whole electioneering process as we know it in the country. And that critical component that this man holds is very vital towards the credibility of the elections that as a country we are just about to undertake. Suppose someone has accessed a way through which they can hack into the system and then they eliminate this man. That could put the entire country into jeopardy. It can put the entire democratic process into a test. So, yes, this is a critical issue that must be addressed, and we must run away very fast from Weda's simplification of this issue.
I don't know where you stand, Kesia, with Weda or with Olo on this, because this is a man who today, on the 31st of July, was to play a critical role on the testing of the transmission of election results.
Now, first of all, let me hope and pray that our brother is safe. Whatever he is, whatever he's doing, let's just hope that he's safe, because that's what is important. But secondly, you know, my brother, Nini Ono, and his team, they are fairly very good and excellent in propaganda and spreading fear. This is, I agree, is a very, very crucial and important matter. Our brother who's in charge of ICT is an important person in the electioneering process, and we hope that he's fit and safe. But having said that, I think what is important to note, an institution is not driven or run by an individual.
Right.
I'll be so scared. I'll be so scared stiff if we placed an institution in the hands of an individual instead of placing an institution in systems, procedures. An institution survives when you have a system. It is system-based, not people-based. Because it is only a human being who facilitates. And I'm also hoping that this institution called IBC has backup. You know, forget about our brother disappearing. There are other acts that can come into play. For example, touchwood, if you're in charge and the almighty close were filed today, what will happen? Are we not going to hold elections? What is important is that we must have backup and that the institution must be system-based.
And not people-based.
System-based, not people-based.
Olo, you have something to say to that?
I think my brothers seem not to appreciate the content of what I've just advanced. We are not talking of elections not taking place because an individual has died or disappeared. We are talking about some unscrupulous person taking this person on stage, extracting some vital information. Remember, this is a custodian of something.
I think these are, you should not allow my brother to make assumptions.
Let's let him finish. Let's let him finish.
Those are assumptions.
Go ahead, Olo.
I kept quiet.
That the man has disappeared.
Let's let him finish. All right,
I
Mr.
kept
Kisia. Go
quiet
ahead,
as
Olo.
Okay, my brother, I agree.
It is only fair that we accept the rules of the debate. This is not any other person. What we are looking at is not about systems failing to operate. It's not about Kenyans not having elections on 8th of August. It's about some unscrupulous person having access to this person, either forcefully coercing him, putting him under duress, and having passwords through which he can access or hack into our systems. So it's not about IEBC having systems that failed. It's about someone, unauthorized person, accessing the information.
All right, I'll give you one of them. But let's hear from Zai on this because he hasn't said anything on the matter. Your thoughts on this, Zai?
Yeah, I think it's sad that we get to trivialize some of these things where there is life of someone at this point. Right. This is a man with a family out there, and the Kenyan people are watching. You know, so to base a conversation based on what you saw on the internet and what Kuria said is very sad. Okay. So secondly, and I wish him well. I hope he's well with his family out there. But I think secondly, we simply need to agree that this man was in charge of KIMS, which is really the whole verification process of the voters. Now we need to put this in the context of what's happening. We just talked about the ballot paper. We talked about all issues to simply assure the Kenyan people that we'll have a fair and credible election. Now there is this, you know. It's a breach. It's a breach of the whole IBC system to ensure that we have a credible election, and we should be worried. Okay, we should be worried about that. No matter how you say, if you have a manager out there who has all the systems and the passwords, it's only a few that you could probably change. There are some you may not be able to change. We do not know what happened to this in any other country outside, in the first world developed countries. This will be a major, major issue, okay? And here it's not time for us to play around with this. So I think IBC has quite some work. I think the police and the CID, all the way I think to the president, the sitting president, they have a lot of work to simply come out and assure the Kenyans still that things are well.
And of course, all right, let's give you a final comment on this topic.
Make this clear to Kenyans. You know, because ICT sounds big when we talk about passwords and so on and so forth, then it looks great.
Right.
Our voting system is practically manual. The only thing electronic about it is the identification process. You go there, you put your fingers, and it comes out. If it fails, then there are books, manual one, the one that my brother's team tried to reject, but good sense later on prevailed. Then you are physically given the ballot paper, which you physically mark, and then it is put in there physically. Then it will be counted physically. Then the figures will be signed in a form physically. Then the returning officer will send an SMS to the server that Onyangolo, my big brother, has obtained this number of votes. So this thing of they'll be hacking in and interference is fear-mongering.
But even as we wind up on this, to be fair, even Wafula Chebukati did come out and say that this man, Chris Musanda, was among the few IBC officials who had information regarding IBC's ICT center.
So the word few means there are others. The others, so the issue of password disappearing, that's not right.
All right.
Then secondly, we pray for him that he's safe. And from what I can see, the man is safe. You can see, and God has said he's safe and he will remain safe. He'll come out. But let us not fear monger that people will get information and then this will be used to do reggae. Let's not fear Jubilee too much.
But we have to move on from
this.
this.
Let me just probably say one thing. That, who says that probably the people who could have caused his disappearance are not NASA? You know, let's not make assumptions. Let's not make assumptions.
Final comment on this.
No, I'm saying let's not make assumptions.
Let's talk honestly.
You know the discussion.
That is Jubilee.
Mr. Kisia, let's kindly let Mr. Olo finish with his final comment.
Yes. Two things I will have to address. One is my brother here saying, who said it is Jubilee who has disappeared with the man? It's the Jubilee people who are acting as if they disappeared with the man here. All right. Let's
move away from this, finger pointing, because we have other issues to discuss. So as we, of course, question the security of Mr. Chris Msando, there's been other issues with regard to security, and that is the attack at the home of Deputy President William Ruto's home in Sugoi, an attack that has really raised more questions than answers to Kenyans as we speak. So this was an 18-hour siege, and the information Kenyans have is that those it was one man with a machete who has held, a combined security forces hostage, or, literally for 18, 19 hours. Let me begin with you once again, Nzai, as to the, the air of, tension that this has created, especially in Eldoret region. But do you, first of all, believe the communication the country has received as to what happened?
I think it goes into some of really the serious issues going on in this country between the government, which is to assure security on one hand, and the citizens of the country at this point. I mean, this is, it goes in to say, truly, we have a leadership crisis in this country. These things cannot simply happen if someone, and the story is being told, it seems like a joke, and this movie, which is a joke, but seriously, because a GSU officer got killed, and a lot of bad things, a lot of money was spent, a lot of personnel was moved into that place. This is the house of the Deputy President of Kenya. It's the presidency which commands the armed forces, and these things are happening. What will happen to someone out in Kayole or somewhere in this country? So I think we have a problem. It's sad that these things are happening, at a time where we should actually be very, very vigilant, and things that need to be simply very assuring, especially coming in from the government. And hopefully there will be an explanation which will be resonating with the Kenyan people. But right now, it does not make sense.
All right, I'll come back to you, Uweda. Mr. Olo, do you think this signals to a laxity of the security installations in the country?
I did say that this is a season of high drama. In fact, leadership has never been more comical than it is this time around. Initially, when we were getting to hear this thing, there were about 7 heavily armed gangsters who had invaded our deputy president when he was just leaving his compound. It turned out this was one man with a machete, and I think there's a kilo of meat also emerging in the scenes. What this thing simply tells us is that whoever is trying to be creative must know that creativity has got limits, and that there is an extent to which you can cause drama and play with Kenyans' minds or divert attention. Or the other alternative is that we must accept that the government is telling Kenyans, if this is what can happen to your deputy president, you are on your own. Because if one man with a machete can cause platoons of the Reke squad, the elite paramilitary squad, and hold them for almost 20 hours, what of you? Well, suppose there were only 2 men or 3 men and they had a gun. Maybe the whole country, we would have mobilized the entire army. So the message is simple. Kenyans, on security matters, you are on your own. The other alternative, we are in the theater of the upside.
Do you think this has cemented that particular perception that Olangolo is talking about?
My big brother, I think is good, but he's exaggerating security issues. Just the other day, PS and a busload of people were almost wiped out by Al-Shabaab. When General Kaiseri died, they had beheaded 9 people. The question of the operations of Al-Shabaab in this country, and terrorism and insecurity, is of deep magnitude. It's only that a lot of work has been done, and now we are safe, we can come here and talk. Let us appreciate one thing, that when there is an attack, you would not know the magnitude of the attack. Remember, the deputy president's home is different from the government one.
Right.
That is why it does not seem to have internal cameras that could show where anybody, an intruder is. But the fact remains an intruder came in. took a gun. And a single gun in the hands of a professional is a very serious thing. Even those who brought down Osama bin Laden, there were quite a few, but they were highly trained.
He was a hawker, Mr. Wade.
Thank you.
It is not that, just please, a hawker is a cover-up. Otherwise, we have many hawkers that sell, but the residents were saying is a man who is selling 1 or 2 clothes here and there, and that is how terrorists operate. They come in, they take cover, they get employment, they work for people in houses, and they do things. So let me say that to take this as a drama is actually to be careless about security. It was an unfortunate event, and I also think that our security team, 1 or 2 GSU men is too few a number during hard times to guard a deputy president, and that is a sorry state. But going forward, when it comes to matters of security, let us all join hands as a country. Let us not see NASA or see Jubilee or see... When things were hot, Honorable Raila Odinga and Honorable Mwai Kibaki sent our sons and daughters to Somalia, and they have protected us. They have provided us with freedom that we are enjoying now, that we can talk. So security is not about NASA or Jubilee, it's about us as a country taking serious steps.
I'll come to you, but Kisia has not said anything to this same question. Kisia, does this point to a laxity on our security installations?
Now, first of all, let me appreciate the work that our security forces have done over the years to ensure that Kenya has remained peaceful for the last 50 or so years since independence. I think Kenya is one of the most peaceful nations in Africa, and that needs to be appreciated. This is done by our sons and daughters. Now, getting back to the incident, unfortunate incident that happened at Surgoi, at the DP's residence. You know, when you are talking about a security operation, you're not talking about, the first thing you need to establish is the magnitude of the challenge. You can't just move in because you can cause more death. And the work of security agencies is to protect lives and property. So first of all, you get in, you understand the challenge, and then you map out the strategy on how you'll deal with the challenge. You can't just assume it's one person. If it's one person, 2 people, what ammunitions are they having? What training do they have? And the first call is to secure the innocent. So when our security forces moved in that situation, their first target was not that person or persons. Their first call was to secure the innocent Kenyans who were in the deputy president's compound, which they did. And then, of course, went for the target. Now, I think we don't need to trivialize issues to do with security. Probably one day when we have issues of insecurity like other countries, jurisdictions have experienced, then we'll appreciate more what our security agencies have done.
All right, Olo,
you know, the most pitiable thing is that the same people who are trivializing the disappearances of ICT manager now very serious about the security matter. We should not play with it. We can easily get into problems. My friend, you will never have your cake and eat it at the same time, number one. Number two, I want you to appreciate the situation in Sugoi as it unfolded and as was disclosed to us by the media. One, there were 2 policemen. Isn't it? And these 2 policemen, one was never killed. This man is still in hospital and is in a stable condition. Before even moving in there, he would have given his position of what he actually saw. Were they 7? Were they 10? How were they armed? 2, this is a man who was in charge of that guardhouse. He should have told them the kind and the number of weapons that were in the armory, if at all. So you cannot say that they have to take a whole day calculating and measuring how many people are there, securing the innocent. My brother, we are talking about trained personnel here who are on guard, and one has been injured and he can still talk. Secondly, remember we were informed that only the outer gate was breached. The inner gate was not breached. So in a sense, there was capacity to even communicate with the people inside to give them the position as it unfolded. In as much as we must respect and hold in high esteem our security apparatus and personnel, we must also pinpoint when there are breaches in performance. And in this case, this was a melodrama.
All right, gentlemen, we have to move on. Nzai, your closing comment on this.
Yeah, I think there are two critical issues here. That one, no matter what happens, we're in a situation where we're 8 days to the election. We've had problems in this country. People get to die, people get to suffer. That is extremely serious. We have a presidency which in all aspects of this thing, they have now been attacked. Right. A deputy president has been attacked. That is not, that's not showing leadership. There's another aspect of it. We're not just Kenya as a country out here, we're Kenya sitting in the world. We're sitting in a global competitive world. What does this reflect to us? I think we are seen as a joke with this, honestly. You know, we have a presidency, we have leadership, but what it shows out, if it was to be written in the New York Times or Washington Post, it would say that we have a leadership crisis.
All right. All right, gentlemen, let's move on to something else and shift gears now to elections, military and politicians. It is a mix that is ruffling feathers left, right and center, but who is telling the truth? NASA, Jubilee, KDF or the Defense Cabinet Secretary Rachel Omamo? Well, here are their opposing views on the alleged ploy to rig the election.
To prepare contingency plans with respect to any foreseeable situation that may negatively prejudice national security. The Kenya Defense Forces is no exception. Finally, the Ministry of Defense views the public disclosure of the names of officers and their telephone contacts as reckless, absolutely reckless, because it unnecessarily risks the safety of these officers and their families. Furthermore, such disclosure may be exploited by hostile entities such as Al-Shabaab to the detriment of these officers and their families.
Included will be 226 new soldiers being trained at Mariakani Barracks to be deployed on this mission. The new soldiers don't have networks in the military. Because they are new, they will readily take any orders and at the same time cannot be identified, nor can they communicate with other soldiers who might not be privy to the plot and who would be opposed to it.
Huyu mzee hana haja ya uchaguzi. Yeye anatafuta mbinu zote za kuhakikisha ya kwamba Wakenya hawatachaguana. Na ndiyo baadaye aweze apitie mlango wa nusu, akuje aseme hiyo serikali ya Uhuru na Ruto sasa imemaliza awamu yake, sasa twende mambo ya nusu mkate. Nandi mutakubali mambo ya nusu mkate? Nandi mutaniruhusu mimi na Ruto tutengeneze serikali ya nusu mkate?
Differing views surrounding the claims that the military may be used or is being used by the Jubilee administration to rig the election. And we'll be delving into this in just a moment. But it is now 56 minutes past the hour. At this point, we'd like to release our viewers watching us on KTN Home. Many thanks for being part of this discussion. Life and Style is coming up next. For those who want to be part of this conversation, do cross over to KTN News. The conversation continues right now. All right, gentlemen, so we've heard the views from CS Defense, Rachel Omamo, we've heard from NASA, we've heard from Jubilee, differing views on whether the military is being used to rig the election. Let me begin with you, Kisia. First of all, there's been an issue of contradiction within the Ministry of Defense itself. The CS there, Rachel Omamo, of course, saying that there is no such plot, that the document that was revealed by Raila Odinga, is not a correct document. But you also had KDF owning up to this document, saying the documents are correct, they've just been leaked, but they were taken out of context. Your thoughts on this entire issue?
I think, one, I agree with KDF that the matter may have been taken out of context, but I think I would rather deal with the bigger picture. The bigger picture is whether KDF constitutionally is allowed to intervene in internal matters that affect this country. I think that's the bigger picture. But other operational issues should be left to those running different arms of government. Yeah.
Right. Onyango Olo, let's delve into that question. First of all, is KDF supposed to take care of internal security?
First and foremost, because you've given us that clip of Madame Rachel Mamo, and before I delve into that, it is quite unfortunate that in Kenya, when people see cameras roll, everybody wants to go and talk, even those who should not be talking. Our constitution is very clear on the role of cabinet secretaries, number one. Number two, the leadership of NASA did not in any event accuse the Ministry of Defense of involvement. We went straight and said that KDF was involved in this matter. And we gave evidence through the leadership of NASA. Now, KDF has one man or woman at a time entrusted with being the spokesperson of that entity.
Right.
In this event, Mr. Owoth is the spokesperson of KDF and not Madame Rachel Mamo. Madame Rachel Mamo had no business commenting in this issue. We had not accused the Ministry of Defense. So when Mr. Owoth comes and acknowledges the documents as authentic, then we hear positions being advanced that these people are supposed to beef up security during elections. Our Constitution's chapter 14 of the Constitutions that tells us what the armed forces or the defense forces should do or should not do is clear. Matters of internal security are the domain of the police and other forces. The KDF has no business whatsoever getting into them. And even when we have to deploy KDF, we have to get approval of Parliament. I've had people making claims that Parliament is not even there to be consulted. Parliament can be summoned at the shortest notice, and we have always summoned them, even overnight, to change, to get certain permissions. So, precisely put, KDF has no business interfering in matters that are internal or matters that are elections. To add to that, let us make it clear that we have policemen who are equally professionally trained to handle these matters, and they are in their numbers. We have not been told that we don't have enough of them so as to involve KDF. KDF must come clear, IEBC must come clear on why the attempted rigging of the elections as postulated by the NASA leadership.
Right, I think, let me just comment on what my brother said. It's not correct. That's not the correct position. And I'm sure Weda will add on to what I'm saying. Article 239 is very clear, ABC, that it defines who the defense forces are. We have, of course, the Kenya Defense Force, we have intelligence services, and then we have the National Police Service. Article 241 gives express authority to the Cabinet Secretary for the time being to seek interventions from Kenya Defense Forces to ensure that the integrity and security of the Kenyan people is protected. And it goes further to say that when Parliament is in session, in fact, in this case, the Parliament has been adjourned sin die, the Cabinet Secretary can take appropriate measures and inform the Speaker of the National Assembly. That is a law. Article 241.
My brother.
That is a law.
Are you making
Article 241.
Let's let him finish.
That is a law.
Are you making admission?
That is the law.
Okay.
Article 241.
I have
let's let him
with that. That is the law. Are you making admission, by the way, that KDF is being involved and the Cabinet Secretary should just go and inform the Speaker?
No, I'm saying...
Is that what you're telling me?
I was just responding to your issue. You said that the Kenya Defense Forces have no authority, they have no mandate. What I'm saying is they have mandate as stipulated in Article 241.
I have no problem with that.
I have not said that.
Gentlemen, let's focus on the bigger issue here, and this is whether KDF is being used to rig this election.
That is the issue.
Let's hear from you, Weda.
Now, let me clarify to the people of Kenya that the KDF can be deployed at short notice when there is emergency. That is clear. If you bomb Parliament this morning, the Commander-in-Chief will issue orders immediately.
When there is an emergency.
There will be no jostling about Parliament, whatever. And if there's anything, it will come after. That is about war. Whether or not KDF is being used to rig, it appears everybody in this country, according to NASA, is being used to rig. It's either IEBC, KDF, police, army, Uhuru, Jubilee. Those are the normal political gerrymandering during elections, especially when you think your chances are slower. How are KDF? You know, the army people are so feared. People fear them. Even me, I fear them until the day I become commander-in-chief. That any intelligent person who wants to rig will not use the army. He will use my former Secretary General, great man here, than those people. It is just a mere allegation. Why would you go to them when there are so many other people around here that can be used, the agents, the returning officers, the same thing. So that allegation is wrong. It is meant to divide the military so that when they cause mayhem, then some people try to install them, either in their bunker in Uganda or in the clouds. But we are cleverer, we have seen through it, and the military has seen through it, and they are not going to be divided along NASA Jubilee line or tribal lines or whatever lines. They are not being used to rig. How do you use them? We are more clever. If you want to rig, we'll use very clever means. Right. But we don't want to rig my big brother.
Let's hear from Nzai, because Nzai, you're looking at this from the outside and, you know, looking at Jubilee and NASA fighting over this military issue. Where do you stand on this?
We're actually outside we're actually not outside. That's why Ekuru Aukot and me are running for president. You know, there is dishonesty here, which is totally clear. And that's why we have said the Kenyan people need to take their country back, one. Secondly, we need to bring honest and transformative leadership. You have a cabinet secretary for defense, a very respected person sitting in that office and in that position. What she comes in and says is totally contradictory with what the KDF says. That's a joke, and it's the continued joke that we see. And it's a serious matter because in the same clip, you are showing the commander-in-chief, the president, now the chief campaigner out there, talking to the people. And what does he say? Instead of reassuring, he says, well, this election, there's some other people who want it postponed. And all indications from an ICT manager from IBC, from Al Ghurair printing 1.2 million ballots, from the deputy president being attacked by a hawker, from this thing about contradicting, you know, what are we telling the Kenyan people? Right. Who wants an election on the 8th and who doesn't? I think this is the matter, and I think what there is, this is the leadership of smoking mirrors that we are seeing here.
Right, but gentlemen, the question here is, what is the way forward? It's just 7 days to the election, and all these perceptions surrounding the military are raising tensions in the country.
Let me say, it comes back consistently to what we have said. IBC needs to really take its position seriously. They can learn from the Kivuitu, they can learn from the Isaac Hassan, they can learn from the Kenyan people in this constitution. There is a lot of honest people here like us and leaders who we want to help to simply ensure that no one man dies on the election day. Right. And that's what we should all be praying for. There's a lot of Kenyans out there going in to pray for peace and going out, but as they are doing that, these are the guys who should be the ones who, at the front of this leadership, they are fanning the whole of these anxieties and not assuring the Kenyan people. Right. So I think IBC, our call is still to IBC. As a matter of fact, they need to call in a crisis meeting right now and talk about these issues bit by bit and assure the Kenyan people.
Right. Onyango, these claims are coming mostly from the NASA Brigade. What is NASA's solution going forward?
Let us be clear on this. You see, when you put this question, you can see Jubilee quoting sections of the Constitution without putting them in context. For instance, Article 241 allows deployment. And then my colleague here comes and says, very correctly, by the way, that you can deploy the army in terms of emergencies. Is our elections an emergency? Surely it is not an emergency. We knew all along from 2010 that on the second Tuesday of August, on 8th of August, there will be an elections. Right. So there's no emergency at all. Secondly, when NASA speaks, and let Kenyans hear this, when NASA speaks, there is always a backup trolley of evidence to support what they have said. And in this matter, what was said by the deputy party leader and the party leader, who are the presidential candidate and the deputy presidential candidate, was backed up by documents which have been owned by the KDF. Now, there is an institution that is entrusted with running our elections. It has the mandate, however belated, to continue reassuring Kenyans that they are in charge. To date, as we are talking, Kenyans are really in doubt whether it is the government or IEBC that is in charge of this electioneering process. And I've said this in other forums, that if these elections end up in chaos, IEBC should be held squarely accountable. And should Fatou Bensouda come knocking this time round, he should know who to go for directly. He should not even bother with politicians. Someone has abdicated his or her responsibility, the IEBC.
Right.
Let them step up and take up their positions.
Let's wind up on this topic, but this has also continued to raise fears. Just ahead of the election, we've had a mass migration from various urban centers, people going home seeking safety there, people stocking up food from supermarkets. Do you think this is likely, the claims on the military involvement are likely to affect voter turnout?
I only wished our brothers in NASA would have lowered temperatures, especially propaganda and allegations, such that people fear there would be violence. On Saturday, I was in game, and the people I was talking to, when they were talking to me, all they were telling me is that you have already rigged these elections. You have already rigged it. You have already, in fact, they have resigned. And I'm telling them, it is your team that is giving us a giant position, that we have taken control of everything. Please still have hope. Wake up, vote for your candidate. If it is Raila, fine. If it is Uhuru, fine. But make sure you vote to make a difference. I think people are just being cautious, but this time there's going to be peace. And I urge those who are running away to other places, please don't run if you're not voting. I vote in Seme, and I will be in Seme to vote. Right. It is something good that is worth dying for. Let us not fear, let us preach peace, but let us vote. We want a winner. Let somebody win with your vote, or let somebody lose, but with your vote. Those who are going to cause chaos in this country are those who are not going to vote. Right. By pretending, oh, I would have been beaten when I was in Nairobi, I would have been beaten when I was in Kisumu. Who is going to beat you? Right. So I think we are going to have a peaceful country. We have already prayed, and God Almighty is on our side. And He has said that Kenya will be peaceful. And my big brother Nyangolo here says it. There will be peace. Right. So, and I know he'll take this message to his NASA counterparts that fear-mongering along in the name of the Lord, they reduce it. We will be peaceful. Right. And nobody's going to steal any election.
Kisia, same question on voter turnout. Do you think the political class is really thinking about the implications of such claims being given by NASA?
You know, the propaganda that is being spread is to cause fear and despondency, and to ensure that probably other strongholds don't turn up in large numbers to vote. Kenya has been peaceful. It will be peaceful this time around. Just like my brother, I've come from the village. I came from Kitale. And people are looking forward to 8th of August to vote. But let me comment on what my friend, my former Secretary General said. You know, and sometimes I can appreciate...
Now Shadow Cabinet Secretary.
Now Shadow Cabinet Secretary. Yeah. But we shall consider him. Now, you see, in management, as a good management practitioner, you must plan for any eventuality. Okay. You cannot sit pretty and say that it will not happen. You ask yourself, what if? What are my strategies to deal with this one, if it happens? So KDF and any other security agencies must always approach issues with a 2-3-pronged strategy. Okay? You cannot just assume all will be well. You should also ask yourself, what about if it is not well? What do I do to ensure that the Kenyan citizens are protected, the property is protected in line with the Constitution?
All right. Onyango, among NASA's concerns with the military is that security agencies have also deployed officers in NASA strongholds to seemingly suppress voting and voter turnout. That has been a concern by NASA. How is NASA dealing with that?
First, it is not just what our brothers would like to call propaganda. In any event, propaganda, why do we run away from it? It is an integral component of politics that is being spewed from their side as much as being spewed from all sides. But the issue of deploying the security forces in NASA strongholds is not just to suppress the turnout. Actually, they are there to intimidate, if possible, to ensure that these people don't just turn out. I just came from Kisumu on Saturday, and I can tell you the drill being done, and you know where they're doing it? In a public place where vehicles are passing in front of the Kisumu Stadium. In front of Kisumu Stadium.
My brother.
So, I was there. I'm telling you. So this is meant to cause, intimidate people so that they don't turn up. Tell you that whatever you do, we have taken control of it. About elections, these are things that have happened, will continue to happen. And what we need is have our regular policemen beefed up maybe in what they treat they call them hotspots. And even these hotspots, do you know who declares a hotspot? The government. So the place they want to suppress you, they declare your home is a hotspot. Their home is not a hotspot. It is quite, that's why I still maintain it's a theater of the absurd.
Right,
things have to be done a different way.
I'll give you one comment, but I don't know if you've been back home like the rest of the panelists to see what's going on in terms of, just a minute.
Just 1 minute, please.
All right, go ahead.
Maybe my big brother Nyangolo, coming from town center, where you see they do many things, so there are many policemen to ensure they are safe. But where I come from in the rural area, same constituency, we are actually crying for more policemen. There are no policemen, and we will turn out 100%. Finally, if you want the Luo people to turn out the way I have known them, and including myself, threaten them with the police, and you'll see a level of defiance. They will come out just to show you that, bring even the GSQ and the army. So this theory that these people will intimidate people so that they come out, that one surely,
but I realize you are making rather serious claims on national television, 7 days to the election. Your thoughts on this?
Thank you. I think that's it. I mean, what we are saying here is the fear-mongering is real, and it's coming from both sides. And then you have to simply ask yourself, the fear-mongering, who is the victim here in the fear-mongering? It's the Kenyan people.
Right.
Okay? And as a result of that, they don't exercise their constitutional right of voting, or some people probably get injured, some people die. Okay? I hope out there, and my appeal actually is to the Kenyan people. If this is the leadership that we have, we're going to have the same problems over in the next 5 years. It's not the only option which is there. Electoral Court and Third Way Alliance is there. We are providing that leadership of honest and transformative leadership, and they have an option of refusing to vote for these two people. Okay? So my appeal is, fagieni wote, pigieni kura Electoral Court na Emmanuel Nzai.
All right, of course, that's not the debate we're having today. But gentlemen, let me give you your closing comments, Lord, before we move on to a different topic.
My view is that Kenyans should be prepared to vote, and that they should turn out in large number to express their will and give a mandate to whomsoever they want to lead them. But now I sincerely understand why even in the debate they refused the likes of Third Force Alliance and the rest. They are not serious.
All right, gentlemen, so let's move on to a different issue, and this is the Nairobi gubernatorial race. Now, on Saturday, Nairobi gubernatorial candidate Miguna's running mate booted him for what she said is incompatibility. Well, of course, let's listen in, first of all, to what Karen had to say before we move on with this conversation.
In fact, I very much believe his ideas are exactly what we need to implement to make Nairobi the green city in the sun once more. I also believe that we're not born leaders, but we become leaders through experience. And my experience has taught me that for one to be a leader, you need to be in touch with people and also be a team player. It's important to value team playing because every person has something to bring to the table. I would also like to clarify that this fallout is not disloyalty. Instead, it's choosing to be transparent to the public. I'll not have the public deceived that the team they intend to vote in is a working team. For the team to work, the governor and his deputy need to be compatible and in agreement at all times and should be able to discuss when there are issues to be discussed. With that said, please let it be known that I have nothing against the governor and I wish him, the aspiring governor, and I wish him well All I'm saying is we're not compatible, and I am not in a position to work with his methods of addressing issues. Hence, if a team is not compatible, then it is not fit to run for high official.
Right, so that is Karen Wangenye, former running mate to Nairobi gubernatorial candidate Miguna Nzai. I'd like to begin with you on this one. Your thoughts on this, and whether you would consider doing the same to your presidential candidate?
Absolutely not. It's sad. It's sad, I think, for our friend Miguna. And I think at this point, no matter what happens, when you take up these positions, there is a duty. And it's duty to service to the people. Mm-hmm. I think it's unfortunate that at this point, a few days to the election, when you went into IBC, you passed through all the constitutional process, and your ticket, you're two people.
Right.
The Kenyan people are looking at you as one leader, not two different people. It's unfortunate.
But what about her reason? But she cites incompatibility and poor working relations with Miguna.
Well, leadership is not easy, totally, okay? And I think when she signed up for it, she should have known that running for a deputy, it means a deputy, okay? She should have done her due diligence, but as soon as she went into IBC and got the certificate, it was no longer about her. It was her and the people of Nairobi and the Kenyan people.
Right.
And I think time will tell on how the Kenyan people will view that.
All right. When it comes to the legal aspect, where does this leave Miguna? Does he still qualify as a candidate for the Nairobi gubernatorial race?
Yes, it still does. I think he will name another running mate.
Considering ballot papers that are already printed.
The name will be there. He may have to grapple with it if he wins. But Miguna being my good friend, I didn't want to comment on goodness or badness. The only thing I would tell the lady is that she needed to have consulted. Small trees climb big trees to be seen over the forest. The mere fact that he's been with Miguna for that short period, you can see can address a crowded press conference, which hitherto she was not able to. So if she was my sister or I was her advisor, I'd have told her, for now, hang in there and build yourself. Then next time, tell Miguna, you're on this side, I'm on this side, twende. Who will be voted, me or you? That's how people grow. You need others to grow. We are under President Uhuru, we have grown. When we were with my big brother, when he was my Secretary General and we went for victory, we grew. Now he's with Jacob himself. He's growing. I'm with Uhuru. You need other people who have made a name to continue growing. And this is a message to young people. Don't be in a hurry. When you're with somebody, you grow and you become big and you become bigger than your teacher. One day I know you'll be bigger than Jacob. I will also be bigger than Uhuru. Please, let's not be hasty.
All right. Onyango, let's get your thoughts on this very briefly on the pulling out of Karen Wangenye.
I think literally Weda has captured it. My only, as Weda says, he's friends with Miguna. I went to school with Miguna, and so I would not want to comment much. But what he says that is worth emulating is that in leadership there's mentorship. And in mentorship you must accept to be a subordinate at some point. From being a subordinate, who knows, you could end up being bigger than your teacher, as he says. But most importantly, the excuse the lady has given to me, it does not hold. Right. The issues of incompatibility. Before we agree to run with you as my running mate or me as your running mate, we must have gone through all that and seen that we can work together. We must be sharing some ideologies and the way we want to work. And the dominant one should be yours. I should be able to see that I'm able to plug onto your thinking, onto your way of doing things. Her excuse does not hold. Unless she jumped onto that thing for opportunistic or selfish ends, I don't see any reason why she pulls out at the last moment. It is quite unfortunate to do that to a candidate. For even its nuisance value, she ought to have just let that thing go and then say not again.
All right. Mr. Kisia.
Now, first of all, I think as my friend Zai, although he thinks that we're still friends.
Absolutely.
You see, leadership is the most complex thing that a human being can ever exercise. And when you've been presented with an opportunity to provide leadership, you must provide it. You must be able to grow with your subordinates. In this case, for Miguna, with his running mate. I did not see that happen. In fact, I've been wondering, who is Miguna's running mate? And I must thank Karen for being honest, because leadership again is about honesty. There is no need continuing to live a lie, staying in a relationship that can never work. So I must thank that girl, that young girl, for being honest to Kenyans and coming out openly to say that this marriage that I wanted to build, that I wanted to nurture, to help my boss nurture, cannot work. And I give him space to proceed, and I wish him well.
All right, gentlemen, so we're out of time. It is just 7 days to the election. The next time we sit here in this panel on Monday will just be a few hours away from the election. Let me give you very briefly your closing comments to Kenyans as to how to conduct themselves for the next 7 days. Zai.
Thank you. I think to the Kenyan people, this is a journey that we have gone through many times. I think it's very, very clear, but we only have one country, Kenya. The days that are coming, I think the Kenyan people are very intelligent. You are seeing what's happening. You can take a perspective from it. You can differentiate what is leadership and what is not. So from there, I think we go through the next few days and we go vote very, very peacefully and go back home and wait for the results.
Right.
And again, IBC needs to do what it needs to do, be an independent body, just like the constitutional mandate it has to do what it needs to do.
Absolutely. Whether you're closing
I can only say between President Uhuru Kenyatta, Honorable Raila Odinga, my friend Ekuru Aukot, Wainaina, and the others, none of those people is worth killing a fellow Kenyan for any of them. Right. Nobody is worth anybody's blood. The Bible says, those who preach peace shall be called the children of God. So when you do not preach peace, whose child are you?
All right. Yes. Let's have your closing comments, Onyango.
Thank you so much. I would like to tell Kenyans to remember and always be alive to the fact that we are a nascent and a young democracy. But that is no excuse to be treated as second rate. We must demand the best because we are the best, and IEBC must pull up its socks to give us the best election.
All right. Ms. Nzai. Mr. Kisili, sorry.
Kisia.
Kisia, I beg your pardon.
Deputy President.
Yeah, I'm not a deputy president. But thank you for hosting us. Now, Kenya is greater than all of us. Kenya will be here today. Kenya will be here tomorrow. And Kenyans must learn that an election is just a process. It comes and it will end, and life will continue. So I urge all Kenyans to come out in large numbers and exercise their democratic right to vote for their candidate of choice. And I do urge them, and I'm sure they have seen what President Uhuru Kenyatta has done. Please vote for him on 8th August 2017.
All right, that is a former Nairobi Town Clerk, Philip Kisia. We've also been speaking to Onyango Olo, who is the NASA, a member of the NASA Secretariat. We've also been speaking to lawyer Ambrose Oweda, and last but not least, Emmanuel Nzai, who is the Third Way Alliance presidential running mate. Thank you so much for this conversation, gentlemen. And that brings us to a break on Morning Express. Do stay with us. The show isn't over yet. When we come back, Michael Gitonga engages in another interview, and we have more top stories making headlines.
This is KTN News.
My name is John Allen Namu. This is Uhuru Park, and this is my voter story. So this park is significant to me because in 2002, that was the first time that I was really